It is Midweek Extra. It is John Gibbons, and we are this season in association with Green King Sports. Huge thanks to them for partnering with us throughout the season. Fantastic place to watch football games, fantastic place to drink, eat, and indeed be merry. We had some good times in the Clipper. Are you going to miss it?
Yeah,
next
massively.
year. That's Lauren Black, by the way.
Yeah.
It was right by Prenton Park. We used to go before, and I was going to say occasionally, but that's a lie. A lot of the times after
every game.
So we're going to miss it. But the women's team are moving to St Helens, and apparently there's a Green King near there as well.
Yeah.
Neil's looked it up already.
Yeah. Oh, good. That's good then. At least we know. Is it in close proximity?
Very much close proximity. So we know what we're getting. It's a fantastic place to watch live sports, and they've got so much of it on. And if you download the Green King Sports app, you'll find not only your nearest Green King Sports location. They'll also give you discounts and things like that as well. And whenever there is sport on, which is a lot of the time, let's be honest, whenever there's live sport on, those discounts only increase as well. So download the Green King Sports app, and huge thanks to them for partnering with us for the Midweek Extra for the season. You've heard from Lauren Black already. We've also got Damian Kavanagh, and we've also got Dan Austin, and we're here to do, first of all, some International Week chat. In part 2, you're going to get me and Dave Powell doing a show called Money Talks, which we've been doing for a while, but we put it in this one today to give it just a bit of extra showbiz that Dave Powell, of course, brings. And then in part 3, we'll be talking about Liverpool v Forest. But what's your International Week position, Damian? Do you just get to relax? You go up to your log cabin and just sort of chill out, or you're hooked on Lee Carsley's Barmy Army?
No, well, I enjoyed the break and the downtime from it. That's the first thing. Of course, I did watch Ireland versus England. I was very disappointed with Ireland's meek showing.
They're fairly meek at the moment.
They are the crap, yeah. So I knew that. I knew that. So I didn't have any high hopes or nothing. And I don't wish Lee Carsley any ill will or anything. Like, why doesn't he get a chance and give it a go? But it's largely, I've got to be honest with you, I'm very selfish about this from Liverpool's point of view. Is like, go away and develop your careers, go away and have a nice time, don't get injured, come back refreshed, don't play too many minutes. And it seems on the whole as though the Liverpool contingent have had a good international break, and and people don't usually sort of talk about that. They only just moan if there's a player who's injured, and sometimes somehow get offended by someone who wants to represent the country of their birth and play football at the highest level and all that. So I understand international footy and respect it loads. I enjoy watching the World Cups, and things like that. When England have been eliminated, it takes the pressure off. But you know what I mean? It's a great spectacle. But as far as I'm concerned, it sounds like the Reds have had a good, the Red players have had a good time, and I think that's good for their development and how they feel. And let's get on with the real stuff now.
Yeah, I think before we talk about the Reds and what they've sort of done, Dan, I know you're a fan of international football generally, and these tournaments, like Damian talks about, take place and they have to qualify for them somehow, and it can be a little bit frustrating, certainly when the Reds are on a little bit of a roll. Seeing sort of, I've got to stop for sort of this again, but as David says, how much it means to them. I love the images of our new Georgian goalkeeper in the crowd with the megaphone and stuff like that. Like he seems like he's going to be a good laugh should he ever sort of end up in goal for Liverpool. But it does mean a lot to the players, and just this idea of I'll tell them all to fuck it off just isn't particularly realistic.
Yeah, I think it's fine if it's not for us. You have to recognise from time to time that you're in an incredibly privileged position as someone that supports Liverpool. Yeah. That your team is really, really good.
We're going to watch Mo Salah on Saturday. That's fun.
And even in the years when you think Liverpool might be a bit shit, they're still better than 99.9% of football teams on the planet. And we get to go away to other countries and watch them play pretty much every year as well, even if they're in one of the lesser competitions. So for the people to whom this is a chance of an adventure, both as a supporter and as players, to go and play somewhere else that they might not get to on a normal basis. I think it's great, and I don't think anyone should ever tell them that you shouldn't be doing it. Also, I think we in this country, and especially in the city, have a strange relationship with our nationality. In some other places, it is more of a form of consistent pride, and it really is a big deal to get your first cap, or it might just be a friendly against a similarly ranked side, but it feels like it makes a big difference. I do think that the Nations League is actually really good. Can't I actually watch it regularly in the breaks or anything?
It seems to matter almost straight away.
It means that every team has got a thing to play for. That's how Georgia got in the Euros, was they went through the Nations League qualifying for the bottom division or the second bottom division, whatever it is, and then you end up to get to play in the proper thing and show yourself off in your own culture. San Marino won the other night by virtue of having a game against a side that's maybe not that much better than them. So I think it's significantly improved compared to what it was like maybe 10 years ago, where it felt like 3 or 4 times a year all of these players were going to different places just for the sake of having a kickabout and selling some tickets. Now it actually matters. So I think they've done a pretty good job of raising its relevance, really.
I think that's really well explained, and it's very much how I feel about it. And, you know, despite not, you know, following international football in that way, the Nations League, I think, is a dead good idea. It gives, you know, teams, like I say, a chance to beat someone of their own standard. And then if other teams know that they've got an opportunity in the formal qualifying route to the others, they can play players. So for that reason, I don't like the friendly so much. You should still have a prestige friendly and get Brazil at Wembley and things like that. Fair play to you. But I think the Nations League is exactly what Dan said there. I think it's a boss idea. It's just that there's too many games. Chip some more of the friendlies and concentrate on that and use that as the middle ground. I think it's great.
Again, people will often blame international football when it comes to like the calendar expanding and player fitness and stuff like that, and that's absolutely, like, FIFA Pro are very good on putting things out every too often to say, you know, they're playing like 75 games a year at this point. But loads of nations around the world really rely on international football for their own funding. Yeah. Like, they pay for pitches in Ecuador, for example, because they get TV rights money from playing Brazil and Argentina on a regular basis.
So it's producing the next talents who then come over to the Premier League. It's producing the next Casido.
Absolutely, but also it just means kids can play, even if they're rubbish. Like, they're getting a social and a fitness thing out of it in their home countries. And again, that doesn't actually matter here. Like pitches aren't necessarily being paid for by England FA TV rights money. But in other smaller countries, that is definitely the case. So it's genuinely very important to the upkeep of football around the world that it's financially sustainable.
Yeah, speaking of kids, I took Ted Gibbons to his first footy class on Saturday, and I don't think he's playing for England. I don't think
you can't say that, come on.
Oh, you didn't see him, though. But he enjoyed it, he had a nice time. That's what you're talking about.
Did he play like a little mini game, or was he doing skills and drills?
Skills, and then he went into a game and stuff like that, and yeah.
Everyone's got to start somewhere, John.
He tried hard.
Nelson was seasick on his first voyage.
I'll tell him that. I'll tell him when he's despondent when no one passes to him. Anyway, we're going to do a bit more international week chat then, and 19 players went away on international break. Basically, every stat I'm going to use is courtesy. This is Anfield, who wrote something really helpful. So shout out to Matt Ladson and the firm there. But 19 went away on international break, and between them they scored 7 goals and got 3 assists. But we're going to go through basically who had a good week and who hasn't. So we'll start. It's been a good week for Trent Alexander-Arnold, Lon.
Yeah, it's been a great week for him, hasn't it? I think, obviously, Kieran Trippier retiring from international football has obviously helped him get into the side, but I think just the fact that Gareth Southgate is no longer there has helped him massively as well. But it's what he deserves, to be honest. I think, a player of his calibre should be starting for England, and those last 2 games have proved that for him. He's got man of the match in both of them, and that's just a testament to him as a player and as a person as well, to be able to go out and do those games. And he got a couple of assists as well, which is nice. So yeah, I think just overall it's just nice to see him actually shine on the international stage and people actually appreciating him as the player that he is.
You mentioned Lee Carsley before. He seems to have come in and with a freshness about him. He's worked with a lot of these players before at under 21 level. He's putting trust in not just Trent but others as well, and they look a bit freer playing for him, and no more so than Trent, who must have felt like, I don't think it was all the manager's fault, but I don't think he helped. Must have felt like every time he stepped onto the pitch, people were waiting for him to make a mistake, whereas I think managing that way, I don't think is an effective way of managing top-level footballers, albeit to an extent you can't argue too much with how Southgate did in these tournaments, but I think, you look at individual talents, not just Trent, there's quite a few who've been quite open afterwards, has said they felt a little bit, cautious, I think, on the pitch. I think Trent looked to me like a player who'd been told to go on and play his own game rather than a player who'd been, it got battered into his head, things that he couldn't, he worrying about, rather than worrying about what he couldn't do, expressing what he can. Does that make sense?
No, it does, yeah. So, obviously, if it would be a fresh start for Trent at club and country level. Yeah. And the vibe coming out seems to be that the players have got a lot of respect for Carsley. And because he's not a big name in that, the whole football media thing aren't going to like him. But if you think about the progression of coaches and the involvement in the system and development in the 21s, that is really the way it should go. Now, I think the whole thing got wild with Trent because it ended up in a conversation where he was either a bad defender or a bad midfielder. And he's just an absolutely fabulous football player who's won the world. And if he was playing for, any of the, England would consider their rivals. Like, imagine if he was, like, playing for Spain or Italy or France. Everyone would just be in awe of this unbelievable talent who's given the opportunity to say, you know what you're good at, you know what you do on a week-to-week basis, go out there and do that. And I think he can overcomplicate things sometimes. Now, I've got respect for Gareth Southgate's record, and, he certainly went deep in the tournaments, didn't he? Which England don't often do. So okay, sound, but it just seems to do. He got sucked into, is he a midfielder and I can't play him like this and I can't play him like. He's one of the best. There's no doubt about it. He's one of the best players in Europe in that position, not just the country. He should have got him on the pitch better than he did. It's a clean slate. It's a new start, and look, who knew? Just tell Trent to do what he's good at, and he's man of the match in 2 games. So it sounds like the current coach is just going back to basics. And just saying, I've got these good players, I'm going to have confidence in them, and let's just crack on.
Where it will stick up for Southgate again a little bit is England have had really good right-backs, and people kind of talk like Kyle Walker's some bum and not a lad who's won 5 league titles in a Champions League. He's an elite-level defender, and if the manager wanted to go down a certain way, for that, then he had good options to do that, but it did always feel like there was a few other maybe younger ones who had a similar style to Trent who were maybe getting preferred to him at some point as well, which just kind of felt off. But whatever it was, it's a new start under 2 managers, like Damian says there, Dan, and he's undoubtedly started the season really, really strongly. He looks really sharp. I think his defending's been excellent. His passing is always great, and he just seems like really at it. And from what I saw from the England games, it was a continuation of how he's been playing for Liverpool.
Yeah, I think he's one of quite a few Liverpool players who came back and immediately looked really reinvigorated. Just loads of new energy about them, self-belief, really wanting to start very, very quickly. I think Salah's like the ultimate example of that, but there's 3 or 4 other ones who I thought looked like they were setting an example from pretty much kick-off at Ipswich, if not necessarily absolutely brilliant in every single touch from first kick-off at Ipswich, then certainly in the demeanour and the way they were going about things, it felt like a step up compared to certainly like the last quarter or so of last season. I also think he looked significantly slimmer. I don't know if that's actually correct, but I've thought that in person. I've been at each of the games, and I think Szoboszlai against Salah, a few of them look like they've dropped a few kilos, and maybe that is helpful. I don't think you've got to be like massively built to be a top level footballer. I think being a bit leaner can sometimes help with your speed of movement over short bursts and stuff like that.
Injuries in the future as well.
Yeah, maybe it's a little bit less load when you're jumping and landing and stuff like that, isn't it? So I just think he looks like he's in sort of peak condition, both mentally and physically, and that just makes it a lot easier to be confident in your ability, doesn't it? Especially if you played 3 league games in which, from a defensive point of view, which you've faced criticism for, in his case Liverpool haven't conceded a goal, and I don't think really at any point have looked like one. Maybe one Xerxes chance at Old Trafford when they were already 3-0 up anyway, and that's about it. So if things like that ever get to him, that being said on the telly and stuff like that, then he's already got a bank of games there where he's, I presume, felt absolutely fine defensively and has played really well. So that helps. I always thought that I thought Southgate had like half cracked it when he did that first World Cup in 2018, when he played the back 3 and really high wing backs, and Walker was the right sided centre half, and I thought he was great at that.
Yeah.
And I never really understood why he moved away from it and started playing different shapes. I know they got to 2 finals after that, so maybe they tell me I was wrong, but I thought they were really good in that tournament, and he was using a few players that weren't necessarily like ones that you would have expected to get start at the time. Like Lingard was playing really well as like an attacking midfielder and stuff, and I always just sort of assumed, because Trippier did it in that tournament, I thought he'd play both of them. I thought Walker would be a right-sided centre-back in a 3, and then Alexander-Arnold would be right wing back, but playing really, really high, short on the other side. I always thought that would work, and I was surprised that they never really like gave it a go properly in a different tournament. I think you can see he pulled out of a few squads as well with like minor injuries at different points, and I think you could see with the way England were going into tournaments, they really just picked people that they trusted. They changed a little bit with the last one by dropping Henderson, Maguire, Rashford, etc. But by and large, it was the lads who've played the qualifiers are going to play the games, and I get that approach, because you can't just turn up with people who don't necessarily know each other that well and go, oh, we're going to drop 5 new ones in here and play completely differently. So I think you can sort of go through it step by step and see the logic of why he hasn't necessarily been getting the games. But I think Carsley, first of all, will probably get the job, and I think that'll be really good for him. I think his career so far, you've seen how willing he is to use young players but also adapt with them. So he played Gordon as a striker when he won the under-21 Euros. He played Jones as a holding midfielder. He gave Gomez, who's been playing really well for Lille for quite a while, that start the other night. So I think Carsley seems to basically back talent and is quite adept at finding a way to get the best out of it. And I think certainly if you're making the step up from under-21s to senior manager and you're thinking about who you're excited about using in terms of relatively young talent, I think he's probably, if not top of your list, then in the top 3 of, all right, we've got a chance to really make him work as an England player here.
Play the players in form, I think he's going to do.
Okay, we'll move on to a couple more. It's been a good week forward, and a couple more who've had brilliant starts to the season, which is Luis Diaz and Ryan Gravenberch. I obviously haven't seen as much of them as Trent, and I doubt sort of anyone's seen full games, but a lot of us will have seen Luis Diaz's goal, and I think lots of us have seen Ryan Gravenberch's pass. Liverpool have now done that thing where they do every angle of it. I don't know if you've seen it. If you've seen it, a lot of it's quite something. I never thought I'd watch a pass for quite as long as I have with that, but he just looks so full of confidence at the moment, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. I think obviously him being able to start the game so far this season, and obviously be able to take that away into his international career as well, because I'm not sure how often he did start for the Netherlands, but I think when a player is in form, like you're saying there with Kazi,
he doesn't get a minute in the Euros, does he?
No, exactly. But like you're saying with Kazi, he's going to play the in-form player, so that's probably the same of what every international manager's probably thinking as well. So he's probably looking at Gravenberch and going, yeah, he's playing well, I'm going to start him. But like you're saying, he's just playing with confidence. I think that's just what you want from players. I think, going back to like just picking up on the Trent thing about like what the media kind of speculates about a player, I think half the time they don't even listen to what is being said. They just like to go out and play football. But it's nice that they can take their good start from club into country as well, and then that they do play and they play well, so that then they will be coming back this week still feeling confident.
Yeah, it's keeping that positivity going for the pair of them, isn't it? And Diaz has always played well for his country, and he's obviously a big player for them. And I like how much responsibility he seems to put him on himself when he's playing internationally, because he's the best player, isn't he? And he's the he knows a bit on him, but some players I think thrive off that, and he sort of seems to want. And Gravenberch has probably waited a while, like he's been kicking his heels a little bit on the bench for Holland, and has been spoken about a little bit as is he ever going to fulfil his promise, and he is now. So for the pair of them, from a Liverpool point of view, it's great that they've gone away and done well.
Oh, no question about it. Did Gravenberch not turn up for the squad or something? And
there was an under-21 squad when he first signed for Liverpool. He said it was a similar one to Chiesa this time, but Italy were a bit sounder with it. He just signed. It was the same international break last year, and he was like, "Listen, I've just turned up in Liverpool. Do you really want me to go to the under-21s or could I find a house instead?" Yeah. And he kicked off basically.
Yeah, and I can understand both sides of that argument, depending on the needs of the club or the needs of the country at the time, and the players could be in a win-win or a lose-lose, and it's about turning this into a win-win, isn't it? And that's what you're talking about with Diaz and Gravenberch now, because you've got players who have started well, they've got great confidence, and all they're going to do is go away. And if Diaz is the one who's shouldering the responsibility for the team he's playing for when he's representing his country, he's only going to continue to bring that to Liverpool when there's like another 8 captains on the pitch, if you like, of that stature of his ability. And he's made a great start, hasn't he, to this season? He's got all the ingredients, and he really looks like he means business. Gravenberch, I think everyone's spoken about what a great talent he is. For whatever reason, it hasn't happened. I think he might have got a little bit lucky, and not criticise him or nothing like that. I think if Curtis had been fit for the start of the season, he mightn't have started the first game. Maybe, I don't know.
But also, they tried to buy someone in his position.
Indeed,
and so there's a sliding doors there.
Yeah, so there's that there. But, he's got an opportunity, and life's full of examples, not just football, but life's full of examples where someone has got it in them. They have got the determination, they're given the opportunity from whatever way, and here we go. And, great to see, like I say, I think you've got to from a club's point of view, you don't want your players to be flogged out, you know what I mean? You've got to sort of like appreciate that the players are going to want to represent the country from where they were born before they had any connection at all with Liverpool. As they go on to continue the career after Liverpool have finished with them, they're going to still want to see their country do well, and they're going to. So you've got to buy into that, and you've got to say, "Is right, you know, I really want you to do well there." So as long as they don't play too many minutes and get flogged to death too much, then I'll never have any complaints. So great to see them all doing well.
Yeah, especially them two. You know, like I say, they have started the season so well. You know, it does feel like big seasons for them, both of them in different ways for the Liverpool career. Obviously, Luis Diaz has been here a lot longer, but had a bit of some of the speculation. And is it? You know, does he want to go? Obviously, his dad won't shut up about Barcelona, which sort of doesn't help. There's some Liverpool fans are saying, is that an area where we can upgrade? There was the Anthony Gordon stuff and Gravenberg. I think that it is fair to say the jury was still out, but how they've both started the season has been really impressive. And yeah, I mean, we'll come on to talk about the sort of the Forest game, but you know, they both have started really impressively, and it was nice to see them carry on that form in international football. Yeah,
they both seem to me to have kind of gone back to sort of past versions of themselves in a complimentary way. The start of last season, I know that Gravenberg was playing a different position higher up, but I thought he looked like a really good player when he first came in. He got a couple of goals in the Europa League, didn't he, where he was like arriving late into the box and stuff. That Alexander-Arnold goal at City, the equaliser, he carried the ball forward really well. And kind of got Liverpool up the pitch before giving it to Salah. I thought he looked really talented, and then I think maybe a combination of like a little bit of fitness stuff, confidence, lack of rhythm, just ended up not playing all that much, did he? In the second half of the season,
well, like.
Yeah. So I think it's understandable, really, that especially at the age, I mean, is he 21 still? Not long time, 21.
21, yeah.
I think it's understandable that you'd have like a bit of a rough few months, especially given in the last few weeks, Liverpool as a whole had a rough couple of months. So he looks a bit like he's got at least the mindset, the attitude of when he first came a little bit. I think he's always looked like calm and composed on the ball, and in the position that he's playing in now, that's really, really useful. I think he makes good, efficient decisions. He's a hard player to kind of like harry or put pressure on. I think he deals with it quite well. He's also really tall and wide. It means that if a couple of players are kind of around him and stuff, it looks like he can hold them off. So that position, which I think is where he played for Ajax, I think he played deeper than what we were using him as last year, seems like it really suits him. And I'm sure, you know, it doesn't mean that they know each other just because they're from the same country or they're going to automatically get along, but I think maybe having the manager and coaching staff just be from the same league and country that he played in before might just be helpful as well, and give you a kind of psychological boost before everything starts. And Diaz looks like he wants to beat people again, which I thought he'd kind of stopped doing, or stopped trying to do, more accurately. Again, from kick-off at Ipswich, it just looked like he wanted to run at Tuanzebe all day, and Tuanzebe couldn't really deal with it all that well. So that to me just seems like he's had maybe a bit of time to collect himself, because he had his own issues obviously throughout last season, but also the last 2 seasons has had spells out with injury. 2 seasons ago, obviously a really long time. And the amount of games that he play, and the fact that he does play international football and it's really far away, maybe this summer was the first chance he had to kind of get a bit of a grip of himself again physically and take time to kind of like get himself back to something approaching his peak. And yeah, he looks like he wants to sprint again, wants to take people on outside or inside. He can go either way. Obviously he scored the goals. I thought the header at United in particular I found really impressive, just because he sort of at the same time found and created the space for it and then couldn't really miss. So the finish looks easy, but he's done the work to make it look easy beforehand.
Yeah, and he's got his teammate maybe distracting him as well, but it doesn't seem to be
keeps his head. So I think they're both really positive stories so far. And if also again certainly from Diaz's point of view with some injuries in the past, the fact that all of the players really, by the sounds of it, bar maybe Ellie, but that's not an international thing, have got through this first week of playing twice. No, it's not for Liverpool, but they've all played twice. I think is good, because they're now going to have to do that. I mean, I know that some won't necessarily start every single game, but that's the rhythm now for maybe 9 months if Liverpool win the games that we would all like them to win.
Yeah, okay. Quick word as well for Trent Alexander-Arnold, who was top scorer in a tournament. I did get it up here. It was called Lafarge tournament there. It's close, isn't it? Consisted of England, Portugal, France and Switzerland. Ironically, European tournament there, but he was the top scorer in that. Got 2 goals, played really well. The goals are available to sort of watch on social media.
Where is he going to play, sorry? Was it right that he came on and played like holding midfield or deep? in the summer.
He was one of the sort of deeper two. I think he's a more attacking player. I think
like an attacking midfielder.
Yeah. I think they used him a little bit wide as well, but I think that was just sort of to get him on the pitch. I think a little bit in the summer, but he is. I think he's basically where Szoboszlai is if you wanted to sort of pick somewhere, but I think he could do something a little bit deeper if he wanted to. But he is so highly thought of, Damian. There's a fellow who owns a pub that we drink in, who's lads in the academy, who bangs on about him every time and watches him and just says this guy. And we talk about the young players that they maybe moved on, and there's a bit of surprise maybe with one or two of them. But I think part of the reason is that they're thinking, we want to get this fella. We want to get this fella on the pitch. He's the real deal.
He seemed to be someone they wanted to. If anyone they were going to talk about, are the youngsters from that tour. They don't really want to name names, but they were quite happy for him to get a bit of praise. You can see that there's a bit of. They think there's something in there, and that's probably playing it down a lot. They obviously recognise his talent, and I think they're already in a position where if the squad gets run down, you're running low on numbers. We would actually trust this fella to do a little half an hour there or help us carry a game there. I think he might get included somewhere where we might not expect it necessarily. I think we fancy him a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we'll move on to a bad week. First of all, Dan, it's been a bad week for flag shaggers. People got very upset over the national anthem stuff. Jeff Powell from the Daily Mail wanted Lee Carsley sacked before he'd even started after his press conference because he said he wasn't going to sing the national anthem. They're all mad.
Yeah, I often wonder if other countries are as culture war-y as we are. I genuinely don't know.
I think you have a go in America, don't you?
Yeah, but theirs is in a sort of different way. It's not necessarily as to do with tradition and behaviour. I think it's more political and actually a bit more aggressive the way that they do it. Ours is more kind of twee and irritating. Because it's like even if you would like him to do it, surely everybody could just say it's fundamentally pointless. Like it doesn't matter, and it certainly doesn't need to become a really big talking point. But people do it because that's how some people in this country think, and therefore want to have other people think, or certainly want to have a big argument about it in public for whatever reason. And it also suits certain people and things, doesn't it, to have eyes on like non-entities like this rather than maybe stuff that is more important and that would reflect badly upon them. So I'm glad that, although I think there has been a bit of stuff about it, I think the vast majority of people have just kind of fucked it off. Even people that you would maybe expect to be involved. Like there are people who were, I think, kicking off about the fucking flag on the kit in March or whatever it was. Christ. Who I think even for them, this is a bit far. Even they don't care. A lot of them. But like in general, all that stuff. I was actually talking to Josh about it the other day. Josh Williams, like the people that do that. So I think they supported West Ham, but also England. People taking stickers, the quadrant, St George's flag stickers, where they have a different thing in each quadrant, and one of them had a photo of Nigel Farage, and they were planning to put them in different places. And even though, like, international football to me is like the perfect argument against nationalism, even though you wouldn't necessarily think, because it's about flag waving and singing the anthem and who's the best country. You go through every squad, and it's a massive argument in favour of immigration and sharing of cultures.
Absolutely.
Because if you talk, for example, the best national team globally of the past 10 years is probably France. If you took the West African, North African players from other places, players out of the French national team, they'd be fucking crap.
Yeah.
And if you went through and you took the ethnic Turks out of the German team, or the Congolese lads away from Belgium, or the Caribbean lads out of the England side, then you'd be left with really rubbish football teams that people didn't particularly want to watch. So I always find it quite irritating when stuff to do with international football descends into stuff like this, because I would think, the tournaments, the way that all these people from different countries go and share in this big party, wherever it is, and also the fact that the makeup of the teams are reflections of modern society, and the fact that people do move and cultures merge together and new things are created, I would think that's a big thing to celebrate. So the fact that it ends up in silly little arguments about, is this fella going to sing a song on the touchline, I find quite irritating. And I think, therefore, people should make a bit more of a case for the opposite stuff when that kind of thing happens, and try and be as kind of ignorant and make these things go away as best they can. Absolutely.
I know. And just on the positives, like anyone who's thinking about going to an international tournament, just go, because it's brilliant. I've done a few. I know one's coming here in 4 years, and I just absolutely can't wait. And for it to be, the kids will be old enough to enjoy that as well. And it is, really pure and brilliant, and just a celebration of football, but like Dan says, different sorts of cultures and countries sort of coming together and supporting themselves in a positive way. It is a brilliant experience that would encourage for anyone. I've still got half an eye on USA in 2 years. Trying to figure out how I can make it happen from a work point of view. But anyway, Harvey Elliott. The one negative from a Liverpool point of view, it's a shame for him, really, Lauren, because he's been patient so far this season. Probably was maybe expecting to start one of the games because of how well he did in pre-season. Hasn't happened. I think there's a couple where he doesn't even sort of come on, but he's obviously thinking, well, there's this big run of games. I'm sure the manager's been saying to him, this run of games when we come back, and I'm going to need everyone. But then suddenly, this next chunk, at least, he's going to miss till the next international break, and it's frustrating for Liverpool because you want the players, but for him, it's a bit of a kick in the teeth.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm surprised of how little he's featured so far at the beginning of the season, considering the amount of minutes they had in the last 2 seasons. But yeah, it's disappointing from his perspective as well, just because, like you're saying there, he probably has had those conversations with the manager probably in the summer and in the last couple of weeks to say, you've got international football, you've got the Premier League stuff, we've now got the Champions League coming up. There are going to be a lot of games thick and fast going up between now and Christmas, so he probably will have been a start. He probably would have started or maybe featured on Saturday, to be honest, because of the international breaks and stuff. But yeah, it's disappointing for him, especially like a young player for his calibre as well. But it'll be interesting to see how kind of he deals with that himself. But to have someone out like that till the end of October, maybe the beginning of November, he's probably not going to feature now, to then get back into his match fitness as well.
That's the rhythm after that.
It's the rhythm after that, so you're probably looking maybe into December, maybe early January, before he's actually maybe featuring properly for the squad again. So, like you're saying there, from a Liverpool perspective, taking him out and having him miss these next couple of weeks is probably going to be a bit frustrating from our end, because I really like Harvey. I think he's a really talented player. I think he's more of an impact player from the bench. We've seen that a couple of times last season. I think he probably looks at himself as he wants to be like that Mo Salah kind of player. He wants to be in that position. So he needs games and he needs to be able to play more regularly. So that'll be a bit disheartening for him, especially.
But this is the risk, and this is how you started talking, Damian, with international football, is that you're having your fingers crossed and hoping everyone's come back. He gets injured at the 21s and doesn't, but I think Arsenal fans, and I've put them as the third one, it's a bad week for Arsenal because they're going to miss a real key player in Odegaard, and listen, we like Elliott and we're hopeful of him for the future and also for the present, so that's a blow for us and for him. But Odegaard's so central to what Arsenal do. They've got this really tough run of fixtures coming up, the North London derby straight up after this, and then Manchester City. If we were Arsenal fans, you'd want everyone, wouldn't you, fit and fine? And then if they've lost him, it's a big blow for their
massive
hopes the next couple of weeks. And then it's not too dramatic to say their title challenge if those games don't go well.
Yeah, and it has that kind of impact, and it's a cruel sport, football. Like that. I mean, Elliott, I'm disappointed for on an individual basis, of course, and Arsenal as a club will just be equally as devastated as Elliott is personally. Elliott, I think, developed with Liverpool because of what he'd done with the England younger team as well. I thought it brought him on, and so we were the beneficiaries of that, so we can't moan if he's out for a month or two, as sad as it is for him. So I agree, what you're saying there. I think he's certainly been playing the weekend. I actually think he probably would have started, because Liverpool have got to rotate. But Arsenal, they have to be at their best in those two games that you've mentioned, and he is one of their best players. That is a significant disadvantage that they're put at. But I always go back to it, even my own club, if our club is, if we are fortunate enough to be fans of such great clubs, and Arsenal is a great club, and we have players from around the world with great talents and we can afford to play them, then we've got to take the blows with what comes like that. So it's a tough look on them, and I wouldn't wish it on them. But yeah, it's a real blow, that, and I think it'll cost them some points over the next couple of weeks.
How big a blow do you think it is? Sorry, Dan.
The new Champions League format makes injuries both more likely and more costly, I think, because if you now just get a bit of a groin strain or something and miss 4 weeks, you're going to miss 8 significant games. You're going to miss 4 weekends in the league, probably a midweek league game, so 5, 2 in the European Cup and 1 in the League Cup. And if then say, maybe you drop a couple of points here and there in the European Cup, well then maybe that means you've got to play the extra playoff round that's in February as well, and suddenly the whole season feels incredibly long, even more so than it already does. I think generally the English teams are going to find this season at the very least, but maybe the first few in this new format, quite difficult. They're obviously the most well-resourced, and they've by and large got the biggest squad, so the argument would be, well, they should be able to cope with it. I wouldn't disagree with that. I think it's a good thing, really, in the grand scheme of things. But other countries don't have League Cups anymore. They got rid of them years ago or never had them in the first place. So teams like PSG, for example, aren't actually playing as many midweek games between now and the knockout round of the Champions League, say, and can maybe even afford to take a few of the league games a bit more lightly as well than what Liverpool, Arsenal and City probably can. I was quite surprised that City didn't just add more people in the summer, really, on that basis, just to kind of have extra bodies. They've only got about 17, 18 players that I think they'd actually want to use, and that's small in a previous season, never mind this one. So if Arsenal miss Odegaard for 6 weeks, if Van Dijk got something and missed a month or two, if Rodri got one, then I think suddenly that period when whatever significant player is out for those teams, I think it just suddenly feels really hard. And as I say, I think it'll certainly take one season, but maybe more for the people that run the clubs, but also the staff to kind of figure out how do you actually deal with this rhythm. What is your way through it?
No, it is. It's going to be an interesting test and a unique test. Well, say unique, a new test certainly for all of these clubs. Okay, we'll leave it there for part one. Hope you've enjoyed that. Right now, you're going to hear from me and Dave Powell doing our Money Talks episode, sandwiched in beautifully with my wonderful guests. And then when we come back, we're going to be talking about Liverpool's game against Nottingham Forest. It is Money Talks. It's a Money Talks insert this time, international break. So we're squashing 2 shows together to make them action-packed, and full of quality. And as ever, full of quality. Quality's his middle name, Dave Powell. Dave, thanks so much for coming in, football finance expert, of course. And we're going to have a little bit of a chat about, well, coming up in a bit, we'll talk a little bit about the Everton takeover, because it is interesting and it seems to sometimes drag out, sometimes move quickly, but it's still obviously not resolved. But I want to talk first of all, if you don't mind, Dave, about the window that's just gone, because it was an interesting one to me in that 5 clubs actually end up making a profit, quite a sizable one. Manchester City making the biggest profit, which is quite interesting. Liverpool second from there, but a few other clubs making a profit. Arsenal, I think, a sort of small spend. And then of the 15 who did sort of spend a positive amount of money, if you want to sort of call it that, certainly the supporters with. You've got Brighton there who are right at the top, and then Ipswich as well. So generally it looks to me, Dave, like, first of all, spends down. There's a few clubs who are actually looking to recoup. And the ones who are spending big are teams like maybe Brighton, who probably had a lot in the bank already, and Ipswich, who feel like they can't. It is an interesting window when you look at it in terms of overall spend.
Definitely. I mean, I think it should probably be instructive as to where we might be heading for the transfer market in general. Financial controls really started to bite, as we've seen through points deductions for Everton, Forest over the past 12 months or so. Clubs are now genuinely concerned that, PSR breaches, or even when the Premier League moves to this new model of a squad cost ratio rule akin to what UEFA has, then there's more likelihood that they're going to be punished. So clubs they've used this summer knowing that everyone else is going to be in a similar boat, save for City and Liverpool, who have the flexibility to spend. But when you are the best 2 teams in the country, you throw Arsenal into the mix there as well, then you don't have to add, you're not chasing your tail and trying to add quality just to try and bridge a gap. You're just trying to keep everyone else from from catching up. But I think you look at the previous year, I think it was just over 2 billion was spent in the transfer market. This year, probably looking at 800 million, maybe less than that, maybe a little bit higher. Which shows that that's a considerable amount of money. I mean, the big deals that we saw last summer, so Declan Rice, players like that, we just haven't seen the likes of this year. Everyone's being more mindful about. I mean, also we've because so many clubs have been close to the PSR threshold. We've seen so much player trading between people, and all Premier League clubs. So, you've had Everton, Villa, Chelsea, all moving pieces of the puzzle around to try and book big profits on academy graduates, but at the same time buying players and spreading that cost over a longer period of time. So it gets them out of a sticky spot in the short term. But I think it's, as I said at the top, I think it points to a wider theme in the transfer market that, I mean, I've mentioned this previous episodes, the broadcast revenues in the early to mid 2010s allowed for the acceleration of huge growth in salaries and transfer fees, and the English game pretty much kind of was the driving force between what everyone else in Europe has to spend. Yeah. Because we're spending money in Europe, which means Europe have got more money to spend in their pockets, and vice versa. It's a domino effect. But now the broadcast deal, 6.7 billion, but it's over 4 years instead of 3, which means in real terms, and it's less per game because they're giving away 70 games extra a year. And it's starting to slow down. There's only so far broadcasters will go before they say, well, we can't afford to go any higher. And then everyone else has to start reining it in. So I think clubs are starting to slow down the spending. I mean, they're still spending because they want to achieve competitive success, which brings in money, etc. And clubs lower down the division of spending because they want to remain part of the Premier League so they can get access to the broadcast rights, etc. But I think it's part of a wider thing where we're going to start seeing a slowdown in spending. But if you look at the teams that have spent, Brighton had huge ability to spend this summer because of what they sold last year. Moises Caicedo, a profit of, what did they buy him for? 4.5 million, sold him for 118, something like that, 115. And a whole host of other players who they've kind of purchased and sold at big profit. So and they don't buy at that same level. But this year they've realised that there's an opportunity in a slightly depressed market to spend a bit more, and they have done so. But I don't expect them to do the same next year, because that's not the way they operate. But and other clubs like Wolves haven't spent much because there's some question there whether the owners will remain in for the long term. Everton haven't spent much because they still have PSR issues, and Wolves are
one of the negative ones. They're the sort of the third lowest, if you like it. So, I think minus 13 million.
So I mean, they're trying to recoup money, and they did similar last year. I mean, the Neto thing probably was out of left field a little bit, but they don't look like they're. I mean, they from the outside looking in, they look like they're probably going to be strugglers this season because they just haven't added quality. It might just be kind of managing decline there. I don't know. But then you have City who don't feel the need to. But when they do, they have the ability to, and that's the kicker. If they have the ability to. Liverpool do though. To be fair, if January comes and there is an issue, I mean, they can spend. Same for City. That's not the case for every club.
Do you think it is a case then for some of these bigger clubs in particular that they're going to pick and choose their moments a little bit more, because PSR's quite interested in that it's over 3 years, and so clubs are maybe looking at their transfer activity in that period now, whereas in the past the summer had opened and the shops were open. It was like, right, what can we spend? Now across the league it does feel like it is a little bit more measured, but certainly at the top, and it is really interesting that I mean, of the big clubs, if you like, Manchester United, they're the only ones that they're third highest in terms of their overall net spend. I think it was around 19 million. But if you look at the other clubs who are likely to sort of be competing for Champions League places, let's be kind to Manchester United there for a second. Then, like I say, Liverpool and City have got the 19th and 20th in terms of sort of overall spend, but both massive sort of negative amounts, really recouping money. Arsenal just spending a small amount. There's Newcastle in there that we know the sort of issues we've had who were really sort of low down. But of those clubs, you'd expect all of them, of those to sort of go again. And so do you think it's a case of, right, okay, well, we're looking at our transfer spending now over sort of longer periods, and there's certain summers where we'll really go, and then there's certain summers or certain windows where we'll look to claw a bit back?
Yeah, I think United have had to act this year because they need to try and turn the tanker a little bit and get back into
8th last season,
Champions League football. But also, if you look at the transfer activity, they did most of it after the financial year ended, and the players they've sold, McTominay, Greenwood, Kamwala, some of the academy graduates, Hannibal, players like that.
That's right.
I think they've accounted for something like £100 million worth of profit from academy graduates. They've signed a considerable amount of players, but you amortise that over the 5-year length of the deals, and it works out, 50, 60 million a year. So from a financial point of view, they'll actually save some money in the 1-year cycle, but they'll have work to do moving forward, which means they're less likely to be as aggressive in the market next summer and the summer after, whereas like Liverpool and City, given the structure and strategy they have in place, it kind of feels a bit like 4D chess, whereby they've probably got specific players that they want that they can't get now, and they're not going to add these players just to pay over the odds, or players that aren't necessarily the ones they wanted to try and fit the model. So I do wonder whether they're going to be. They are far more selective. They've always been far more selective. City have, to be fair. How often do they? They've not been aggressive spenders in the market for a few years.
Quietly. Yeah,
really.
everyone always says they've got this massive squad, but when you look at it,
they did at the start. But then there's a low churn of players there. They sold Alvarez without really feeling the need to replace him.
Yeah.
But I think that Arsenal spent well over the past 2-3 years, which means that they're probably well placed. And I think I do think we're probably seeing it now, whereby it is Liverpool, City, Arsenal that are most comfortable in terms of where they're at.
Yeah.
Because Arsenal have got Champions League revenue to rely on again, which they didn't when they started off this spend initially. Chelsea still looks like a complete train wreck. People may argue otherwise and say it's great foresight. They're seeing what other people can't.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to me that it just seems like a vanity play, because ultimately, people that own private equity firms hire good people to run their operations. They don't get involved in the day-to-day business of micromanaging, which I think that seems to be the case at Chelsea. But so I think those 3 clubs are the best position to really kick on and be more selective. For the rest, it's just about trying to move the furniture around to remain compliant and be the best of the rest, really. And I include United in that, really, because they're not out of the woods in terms of PSR concerns moving forward because of they posted their financial results for the most recent financial year, because they're a publicly listed company, publicly traded company. We get the financial snapshot of them in real time, so up to the end of June 2024, and it was 130 million pre-tax loss, which is from where you start PSR assessment. So it's heavy loss again, and that's 5 years now. It's 2019 was the last time they made a profit, and that can't continue ad infinitum. There has to be. And that's why they're making staff cuts. They're trying to trim down a squad and the way they operate, and all this is expensive. Whereas Liverpool, City, that's not a concern.
Yeah.
Arsenal's isn't. They've spent some time in no man's land before they got back to where they are now, and they are fine. But I think we're going to see those 3 teams continue to pull away, even without huge spend. I think it's. The Chelsea spend is going to slow down because it has to.
Yeah.
And everyone else is just.
They're going to run out of hotels. To sell.
There's no more hotels to sell. There's no more hotels to sell.
I guess this brings us on to is this all a good thing? Because PSR is clearly starting to bite, so it's working in that they brought this measure in to control spending. Spending has gone down, so they can sit here and say, well, look, what we're trying to do is working. But whether it's working in a positive way for football, for the Premier League, for these clubs is another thing. Now, I will sort of point us to some positives. Less spending's good in terms of recklessness. And so we've seen football clubs, not least our friends who are going to come on to Everton, get themselves in real financial trouble. This should sort of help with that. You spending within your means to sort of help with that. I saw an article the other day as well that said last year in the Premier League, there was more minutes for under 21 players than there had been for years, and they compared it with 5 years ago, and it's a huge increase. 5 years ago people were just buying off the shelf and throwing them in, whereas now if football clubs are being encouraged to develop players, to produce the players, they're also probably being encouraged a little bit much to sell them. But we'll park that for a little bit. But people producing more players is good for this country. It's good for the national team, and it's no surprise to me you're seeing the under 21s doing well. Obviously, the coach being sort of moved up now as well, and it is a period of unprecedented success for the full national team as well. Regardless of what you think about Southgate and how he did it in terms of qualifying for finals and things like that, this hasn't existed in my lifetime, in our lifetimes, and so there's lots of positive signs for football at the moment. But you've just said there, but no one's going to catch the big clubs. If fans of some of these clubs will go, we want to spend, we want to see our team spending. Fans of the Premier League in general might be saying, well, are the best players going to come? I want to watch the best footballers. Are they going to start picking La Liga or whatever it is? Saudi project sort of even. So there is, I guess, another sort of negatives around there in terms of, competitors of the league. Is it biting good? That was a very long question.
I think. I mean,
I love that you've just gone yes.
At some point, someone has to pay the bill.
Yeah.
So the broadcasters done it for so long, that won't continue going up forever. So clubs know that at a point they're going to have to find other things to pay the bill. And I mean, look at the ticket prices. I mean, we've had even this past week, we've had Aston Villa's furore over their Champions League ticket pricing.
Is that a bit of desperation, do you think? You saw it with Wolves as well, and they had to come back. Are they a little bit like,
it's
just need some money
for... And it's because they know that this season making it again is going to be very tough. So, but you also look across the Premier League. I mean, Notts Forest season tickets went up by something crazy, like 25% or something like that. I mean, I might be wrong on the precise one, but it's around about that, which is huge. And someone has to pay eventually, and if that trickles down to the fans, but clubs are trying to figure out how do they make more money. So it'd be the clubs which are the most place the most investment in kind of digital assets, how they reach the global fan base and things like that. But ultimately, it feels like we're going to be trundling towards a little bit of a war eventually between players and the Premier League, because while the clubs are thinking, well, we want to start spending less because there's no guarantee we can carry on just spending more and more every year. The players brought in the idea of a soft salary cap. They want kind of the Americanization of it all, because we have more than half of the teams have American either ownership or minority investment. So they want salary caps, but it's different. So Maheta Malango is the CEO of the PFA. He spoke at the Trade Union Congress in Brighton this week, saying that that's all good and well to bring in that model. But in the US, they have collective bargaining agreements, which are organised through player unions. So salary caps are agreed, so players get X, Y, Z of other things, broadcasting income and this, that, and the other. So we're nowhere near that. I think Premier League governance has been, I think the curtain's been pulled back a little bit, a lot actually, in recent weeks. I mean, they lost the case with Leicester because of poorly worded legislation of their own.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't. It wasn't watertight. So when they were able to poke holes in it, saying, "Well, we weren't a member of the Premier League at the time of this breach," yada yada yada. So there's no argument can be made. So I think the players may have something to say about, well, we're elite athletes. We are doing. There are 8 billion people on this planet, and there are 500 players in the Premier League, whatever we expect to be. Why have we got a cap on our earnings? It's so I think player power may play a cause in that, and that means that driving down wages may be problematic for football clubs. But again, I think without the broadcast money supporting it, it's going to fall back on fans to carry on paying. And also, the broadcast money depends on how interested we all are to carry on watching, paying for Sky subscriptions and TNT subscriptions and Amazon subscriptions and everything else. I mean, does kind of the rise of IPTV and piracy, that presents some real problems for the Premier League and its rights and the value of them moving forward. So I think it's a bit of a perfect storm at the moment, and it's hard to know where it's going to go. But I think we're starting to see the economic headwinds a little bit showing in the spending of clubs. And when you look on the continent, I mean, AC Milan have made a profit for the last 2 years, but they're starting to drive down costs. That's much to the chagrin of their own fans, but ultimately, it's kind of the model everyone's going to have to abide by eventually, because the excessive spend has kind of come to an end now, I think, or coming to an end.
Well, that brings us on to our friends across Stanley Park down at Everton. They were, like I said before, one of the 5 clubs with a negative net spend. They're minus 26.1. We all know the reasons why, and we all know what they're trying to do to sort it out, which is, change owners. It's been a process, I think it is fair to say.
Has it been a process?
How many column inches have you written on it? And a fair few more to come. It seems the latest one who seems to be in the driver's seat is John Textor, who is at least part owner of Crystal Palace. I think majority owner, actually. Would have to sell that if he wanted to sort of buy Everton, but he suggested that he is sort of willing to do that. We watched an interesting presentation by him at the Financial Times event last year, where I liked him. He was mad, and he's got some ideas that will be interesting, which we might sort of come on to. But before I talk about John Textor and the fact that he, how you get into the stadium in Brazil, which might blow people's minds. What is the latest?
We've spoken chapter and verse, haven't we, about the various kind of 777 and all that falling apart. So the Friedkin Group didn't progress because they weren't happy with the debt that still existed to 777 because of some litigation going on in the US. Not to go too deep into that. So they didn't have the appetite to take that on, but John Textor does. It appears, it seems to be quite far down the line with it in terms of being comfortable with, because they're in a period of exclusivity, which they can do, even though he holds a 40% stake in Crystal Palace. But nothing can progress until such time that he divests his interest in Crystal Palace. So how quickly that happens depends on who buys it. So he has the largest shareholding, but he's not. But I think the way, I'm not too sure how, in terms of how the shares are weighted, etc. But Josh Harris and David Blitzer are both significant shareholders there. There's some talk about them purchasing his shareholding. If they do that, that's a swift transaction that requires very little in the Premier League in terms of just waving it through, because they've already passed owners and directors tests. They're already deemed fit and proper, and they already know that they're good for their money. So that's a quick transaction. If it's someone else, it will take a little bit longer because they have to be vetted by the Premier League, although how strict those kind of checks are, I don't know, because they were quite happy to let 777 bumble along until the very end. But nothing can happen until then. But he can get the deal to a point where all it needs to do is be closed. How he funds that is one of the big questions. Whether that's from personal wealth. He's a wealthy man because he made a lot of money from Fubo TV, which is like a direct consumer TV channel in the US, like a streaming platform. He's owner of Lyon, Botafogo, team in Belgium, Molenbeek, I think. He's got Palace. He's got Eagle Football Investments, which is his investment vehicle, which is talking about floating on the New York Stock Exchange. Yeah, so I think he is the only viable option at the moment that they have. There's not much chatter about anyone else coming to the table at the moment, but he would need to pay off the Friedkin debt, which they took on from MSP as part of them taking on this exclusivity agreement. So yeah, there's quite a way left to go.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because he's got 40% of another Premier League club, a club that doesn't have the debt that sort of Everton do, but maybe obviously he doesn't feel like has the potential. Played in London as a smaller club, if you like. I mean, Palace, I don't want to be too patronising. They're a fair-sized club, but they're not as big as Spurs, as Arsenal and Chelsea and sort of things like that, who you're sort of competing with sort of in that city. So although Everton, do have sort of Liverpool, you might think, well, that's a sort of better place to be. There is the brand new stadium, which is an asset sort of moving forward, really. And presumably he just thinks that Everton is, more exciting or more interesting or potentially more profitable in the future than Crystal Palace, and how that's maybe limited by where that is.
Yeah, I mean, the Palace is it's like an intriguing football club because it's a real London club.
Yeah.
But they, Selhurst Park is, I love it as a ground. But if you look around in terms of how modern it is, what they can do in terms of maximising revenue. There's not much they can do, and real estate in London doesn't come cheap. Will the value be there to make that work? And the appetite for that is probably diminished a little bit, and they kind of they continue and they move along as a strong, proud London club, but one that isn't going to be able to kind of surpass what's been done around them with Arsenal, Spurs and Chelsea, etc. So Everton's a unique opportunity. US investment loves the idea of a new stadium when they acquire teams, whether that's in football, NFL, NBA. You look in the US, whenever teams they come under new ownership, there's always a lot of conversation about, do they stay in the same locality? Do they move to a different area? Do they move stadiums? How do they maximise the biggest asset they have, which is the physical stadium? Everton, the new stadium, the links are good. It's not going to be bound by so many rules and regulations about how many concerts it can hold, things like that. It can be used 24/7, 365. The capacity is 20,000 more. So I think that's a huge carrot for him, and everyone wants to be the hero. I think there's an element of vanity there, don't they? Everyone wants to be the person that turns around or manages to kind of save the sinking ship, So, and I think that's it. I think that when a manager comes in, that manager wants to be the person that is the hero, and is the one that. He made some comments yesterday about, we don't exist to, don't want Everton to exist to bounce around in 8th. They love 8th at the moment. And they want to win titles. No, that's great talk, really, that's the kind of talk fans want. But then he goes on to say about player trading and how he's got players that, he thinks Sean Dyche should, and then you start getting ownership being involved in the recruitment side of things. So there is that. So I do think for some it is a vanity play and something they enjoy doing, as well as, will he make a return on his investment? I don't know. There's a lot of people to be paid still. Everton. That new stadium's going to be helpful, and I hope to God that they turn the corner. I do, because they need to. But I do think that it's, for most people that buy a football club, it is vanity.
He is a really interesting character, though.
Outspoken, I think.
Yeah, well, we sort of watched him, and obviously this before any links with Everton. It might exist somewhere if you go into sort of the Financial Times. It was the Finance Summit. Yep. Did you do the business of football? And it presumably will exist somewhere. But he talked about the importance of academies and stuff like that, and one of the reasons he invested in Brazil was obviously the production of footballers, and I think that would please Everton fans. But then he was also heavily against PSR, wasn't he? And said, this idea of why can't people just spend sort of what money they have. He used the Wolves example, so it seemed to be sort of a contradiction there. But the most interesting for me was you said there his background is technology and how he's used that, particularly in Brazil and Botafogo. So when you a lot of stadiums in England are now cashless. This is cardless. So you approach the stadium, you go in on, it's a retina. You get in, doesn't it? It sort of scans your eyes and you enter the stadium that way. And I'm thinking, they wouldn't even do ID cards in England. Like, imagine sort of that's how you get in. And then all the things you buy and stuff and all pay for in the same way.
I get enough price.
Either that or they wouldn't know who to bill. But then it's all just sort of coming out your accounts. You look the wrong way, you bought a hot dog. I don't know. That'd be a big culture shock at Everton.
Yeah. That's. Spurs was seen as kind of the vanguard, I suppose, of what a modern stadium looks like. But everyone's always trying to move the needle, aren't they? We've got driverless cabs in LA and this and the other. So it's only a matter of time before you can blink and pay for your beers. But it's important they have someone with the nous and the background and the foresight to be able to maximise what they have. Whether that's going too far in one direction, I don't know. And whether it's important to English football fandom, as he should have experienced by now anyway, because he's been an investor in the English game for a few years, so he should understand the dynamics of English football fandom is very different to anywhere else in in the world. We're far more bound by traditions and fandom. So I would think he'd probably realise he's tested the water in Brazil, and things may not work out. This is the same level as what he wants over here. But no one, things are always achieved by people willing to push the envelope. But I'm not blinking and buying my beers and and touching my nose to pay for my hot dogs. But yeah, if that's what people are into, that's awesome. But just I'm still getting to grips with just using a phone.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we'll watch the space, of course. We'll see how it develops. I don't think it's happening anytime soon from what you've just sort of said, so I'm sure we'll be speaking about Everton again. But first of all, before you go, Chester going on?
They're good,
Start the season well?
All right, We're, where are we? Third, fourth. Lost the first 2 games and it was the end of days.
Yeah.
Apocalyptic. Everyone burned it to the ground. And they were all right. Yeah, they're all right. It's as good as it gets, though.
Yeah.
This is the joy exists from Saturday to Saturday. There's no grand being part of something which is going to. We're not going on trophy parades. If we do, it's up Northgate Street and it's on a like a tour bus.
Well, yeah.
There's me, my lad, and a few others. But that's what I love. It's all right. Just don't worry about me.
I'm not worried about you at all.
I'm fine with them.
I'm not worried about it at all. Listen, that's been Money Talks. Huge thanks to Dave for coming in. Do make sure you subscribe to his Substack. Follow him on Twitter. Dave talked about people having hero complexes. My hero is Dave Powell. Up to dance. And we're back in the studio, and I'm back with Lauren, with Damian and Dan to talk a little bit about Liverpool v Forest. Now, there'll be loads more looking ahead to this game on our subscription service. So tomorrow, right after the press conference, you'll have Andy hosting press conference extra, and you'll have me tomorrow, because Josh is going on holiday, hosting the team talk. So there are audio and video build up to Saturday's game straight after the press conference. You've always got the pre-match, also got the pre-match warm-up, should I say, hosted by Ian Ryan. Splendidly as ever, I am sure there'll be a caller in there from a Forest point of view as well. So loads to look forward to ahead of the game. So if you want to subscribe to the Anfield Wrap, we'd encourage you to do so. theanfieldwrap.com/subscribe if you want to sort of get involved. One there, obviously straight after the game on Saturday as well, there'll be post-match reaction from the pubs around the game from lots of boys and girls who've been and hopefully enjoyed a big Liverpool win. We shall see on that, fingers crossed. But either way, we'll be doing our post-match reaction. So the best pre and post warm-up to Liverpool games, we think, is on the Anfield Wrap. So if you do want to subscribe to audio and video or both, get involved and you can do that there. I do want to give a shout out to our live events that are happening at the moment as well. So in about 2 or 3 weeks time, we're doing a few shows in, let me get it straight to my head now. We're going to Edinburgh, Belfast, Liverpool, we should be able to get there all right, and London. So for Neil Atkinson is launching his book. It is available to buy now, so you can just buy it online, or if you buy tickets to one of those events, they throw in the book as well. You'll sign it on the night, I'm sure. I'm just guessing. I bet he will. And you'll get different people at each of those 4 things interviewing him about the book. I think I'm doing Edinburgh. I'm loose on facts here. I'm aware of this. But if you definitely go to theanfieldwrap.com/live, theanfieldwrap.com/TAW live. That's the second one, not the first one. You'll get all the dates there. You'll get well more information, and a lot of it will be correct. So there we are. But we'll look ahead to Liverpool Forest. I'll start with you, Dan. 10 of the players who went away played 2 full international games. 2 of them are goalkeepers, but you've also got the likes of Trent, Virgil, Gravenberch, Diaz, who will have travelled a lot. Salah plays 161 minutes. I'm not entirely sure where. McAllister, who starts 1 game, but it seemed to be carrying a little bit of an injury and was on the bench for the second. Fair bit of travel. To what I'm leading at is, are you managing anyone's minutes going into the Forest game, albeit you haven't assessed them, you're not at the exit?
I think this is the point whereby they start planning for the next stretch until the next international break, and they'll have a rough idea of who's meant to play what game, because Milan is only Tuesday night then, isn't it, and then Bournemouth, and then so on and so forth. I'd probably expect them to not pick the direct same 11 that played the first 3. Don't think it'd be like 5 different or something like that, but maybe just 2 or 3.
Do you think he's likely to do 2 or 3 each time, and then by, in a few weeks' time, you suddenly look at it, all the outfield players have had a bit of a rest, maybe even Alisson as well?
Yeah,
with the League Cup
I certainly don't think you'd basically, pick a game that you think's a free hit and you say, oh, well, let's bomb 8 here, and they all kind of get the rest all at once. I think you just stagger it, whereby maybe Maybe you would pick Gakpo on the left this week because Diaz has been away and has been very far away games, as well. And then he would play in Milan, and then maybe Bournemouth, you wouldn't start Salah. Maybe you then say, well, it's Chiesa's first start or something like that. But I think staggered, and I would imagine at most maybe one in each area of the pitch. So maybe you would see, maybe Kwanzaa would play centre half and Konate wouldn't. Maybe Jones would play instead of McAllister, and maybe Gakpo or something like that. But I don't think it would be anything more sweeping than that, because ultimately it is still early, and especially if Arsenal have got like these 2 games coming up, either Arsenal or City have to drop points, or both of them in just over a week, then I think, given the opposition Liverpool have got, I think you really want to be taking maximum for as long as you possibly can. And then maybe by the time that you're getting towards, I think it's after the November break, we have that run where it's like City, Real Madrid, really Everton, Girona and all that kind of thing. I think you then have to account for the fact we're not going to win all them games, but it means you really have to try and do so now. So yeah, I think maybe one change in each area, but that'll be about it.
What do you think about that, Lauren?
Yeah, I think we've been quite good at managing minutes since the first game of the season anyway, for a couple of the players. Obviously he's been taking Trent off earlier on than you'd expect, or you wouldn't expect him to take him off at all, but obviously you're thinking he's keeping that in mind for some of the players because of the summer they've had as well. But I think we've been quite good at that so far anyway. I agree it's probably going to be a few changes to start with on Saturday, or it might be a case of that he does start the players he's started so far this season and takes them off just a bit earlier, depending on the situation in the game anyway. But I think especially with the stretch of games we've got, and you obviously want to get off to a good start in the Champions League, it is going to be about rotation now for us.
Yeah, it's where a strong squad comes into play. Damian does it, and the manager's challenge, and maybe it's not one that he's had to the same level in the past. Feyenoord didn't go deep in European football. In fact, it's one of the ways where he struggled. I mean, he's got a much stronger squad now, he'd sort of argue, but Liverpool are expecting to go deep in this tournament, and it's because of our quality, but also our history in the tournaments. You don't want to throw games away, so that League Cup game, that'll probably be the most changes. Liverpool will still turn up for the home game, expecting and hoping to win, and so it's how he manages these players who all want to play. And Dan's talking about Mo Salah maybe missing one, and the biggest face you have to give it to, that's Mo Salah. And so it's how he manages the players, how he manages their expectations, how he manages a run of fixtures to keep the team at a very competitive level and ahead of whoever we're playing. Is going to be the challenge, but that's why they earn the big bucks.
Yeah, and this will probably be where he feels like he's going to have to earn it. The first 3 games are on their own, with a gap in between after the pre-season, before the international break. And so it is like a little block of games, isn't it, before the next one? So if you think about it, Mo would be probably very difficult to persuade that he's not starting on Saturday. And maybe while they're getting Chiesa up to full speed and whatever you think about the balance of the team or whatever, then I think you probably will see Mo at the weekend. But things like factoring in how far away round the world these other players have been and how many minutes they've played. I think Diaz, anyone could explain to him, you've been fantastic at the start of the season. You're starting in Milan. You're one of our main men. I've got to keep the squad going. This is where Cody's going to get a go. I love you it. Go and enjoy being a sub here. We might throw you on. We'll see how it goes. I think, and that starts then to bring harmony. If you've got more good players than you've got shirts, they've all got to feel involved, and they've all got to be playing to be up to speed when you need them to be involved. And if you can say to him, you say to one player, okay, well, I don't need you on Saturday, but you're playing on Wednesday. And, it just sort of breaks it. But I don't think we can't do it like 5 or 6 changes. I just don't think that would work, because we have got a new manager with a new system. They've adapted to it very quickly. I think we need to make sure that we're focusing on the system. So I was against any changes at all, really, in those first 3 games. With the fact in mind that now we do have to drip, I would say 2, 3, 4 for each of the games going forward into the next international break to manage those minutes, and they can all feel like they've got the shirt dirty, they've all been involved, all the mates, there's every reason that Liverpool could win. I expect and want Liverpool to win the next 4 league games and negotiate enough points in the Champions League to make us feel adequate. So yeah, this is the big thing. But I don't think it's very difficult at this point because we haven't got many injuries at this point, so the fingers are crossed. But we have got an interchangeable group of players, haven't we? Where there's not so much of a drop off in most areas of the pitch. So I think this run of fixtures at this time, on the back of what we've already had, is ideal for us. There's an ideal opportunity for Liverpool to make some hay here. And then if either of our rivals drop a point or two, happy days, and we worry about that on the next side, on the next international break. So I think we're looking at 2-3 changes Saturday, and then keep doing the same.
Laura makes a very good point about, I think, bits of this have been happening already in games. Yeah. Both obviously taking the players off is one, and I think they've partly done some of the convincing already. Like Salah never used to get took off.
Yeah.
And he has been a couple of times already. I think he went off at Ipswich and Brentford. So I think they've already done a fair bit of the explaining to the people. Like when we can get your rests, we will, even if it's just 20 minutes. It's better than none. And they're also doing it in games. They stopped playing against Brentford.
Stop playing against United. You have 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes of 3-0 and then
Salah played more than he's ever played, I would argue, in the 5 minutes after it went 3-0. He had to score 5 more himself.
Yeah. Maybe he knew there was the manager give a cut-off. So he was like, go mad.
Even the players that are still on the pitch, I think, to get rests.
Yeah.
And that didn't used to be the case. I think that's a new thing. And I think it's a sort of sports science thing from basketball. I think they did that about 20 years ago with someone famous, might have been Kobe Bryant or someone like that. They basically explained at quite a young age, we're going to elongate your career here by telling you what to do when you got, I don't know what it would be in basketball, say 15 points up, certainly a margin whereby your team's going to win the game. You basically stop. You just stop moving, don't overstretch yourself, and you will gain, 3 years extra or something like that on the end of your career. And I think people have started doing it in football more and more as the time has gone by, and these new staff seem to be big proponents of that kind of thing. So even though we might think, at some point they're going to have to, maybe in December they might have to just do 7 or something like that, maybe they're going, we've actually been doing that for ages by just doing 20 minutes here and there, or maybe even entire second halves of games whereby the effort drops from 10 out of 10 to 4, and it's fine.
We all think we're going to win?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Great news. And the women are playing a home friendly Sunday?
Yeah, Merseyside Derby play Everton at the new ground on Sunday. Just a little... They want an only pre-season game that fans can actually go to before the season starts. So, if you fancy it, get yourself down there.
Yeah, and absolutely. And do have a half an eye as well on in a few weeks. The women play against Manchester City at Anfield as well. So you can get tickets for 3 games at Anfield this season, or you can buy tickets for all 3 in one bundle, very cheap, £20 for adults and £5 for children, which is, a bargain in any year. Never mind this one, 2024, for 3 games of football for you and your kids. Okay, we'll leave it there. Huge thanks to Damian, to Lauren and to Dan for joining us, to Andy and Ash for producing audio and video, and of course the Green King Sport for partnering with us for this season of midweek extras. I was too early with me week there. I'll do that again. Green King Sport partner with us for midweek extra for the entire season. We do appreciate it. If you want to get out and watch some football this weekend, download the Green King Sports app. It'll find you nearest one for you. It'll get you discounts, and do follow them on Instagram as well, where you'll see lots of intelligent people and me talking about football. That has been your show. Enjoy. Up the Reds.